FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
Welcome, and you are listening to the Financial Survival Network. I'm Kerry Lutz. It's 4/10/18. First quarter is behind us. We've hit some rough seas in the markets, but you're never going to hit rough seas on the Financial Survival Network, and always be part of the show. Call the hotline 914-424-4142 or email us at kl@kerrylutz.com. So rough seas ahead. We're in the middle of rough seas right now, politically, economically, psychologically, any way you can think. Cryptocurrency speaking, well, look, Bitcoin's down to a measly 67.48. Is that just a correction or are happy days ahead? Look, we called the bubble. If you read my article on December 17th, I said, take half your profits now. Don't be greedy. This is a bubble. But I also said that there will be multiple bubbles in Bitcoin. There's a lot of technical reasons why it's happening. Well, let's try to get a better understanding of exactly what is happening in cryptos, the global economic scene, and how you as an investor deal with it. So really honored to present to you David Moadel. And David, you are basically in charge of research at Portfolio Wealth Global. You can find it at portfoliowealthglobal.com. Hey, I like what you do. Really happy to have you on. You're not a traditional stocks and bonds guy. You think outside the box. And hey, what we're coming up to now, you need to be thinking out of the box. So welcome to the show.
Thank you, Kerry. I am so honored to be here. I'm a big fan of the Financial Survival Network, and it's just an absolute pleasure. If I could just introduce myself briefly. My name is David Moadel, and I'm the chief researcher for the bond market as well as the gold portfolio for portfoliowealthglobal.com. And I'm very proud to be with the company. It has a newsletter that's focused on uncovering the economy, the bond market, how to become a better investor. And, I've been approached by a number of newsletters over the last couple of years, but I chose Portfolio Wealth Global because of its amazing cryptocurrency calls and its free financial newsletter as well. And so I'm very proud to be with Portfolio Wealth Global.
Hey, well, welcome to the show, David. So Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies, they're literally in the proverbial, they've circled. I mean, they're still, look, if you bought Bitcoin at $1 or 10 cents a Bitcoin, you're still a very wealthy, probably, and happy person. But for those of you who bought it 3-4 months ago, getting close to its peak, over $10,000, you're feeling like as if you bought gold at $1,900 an ounce and you watched it go down to $1,000, right?
Yeah, I could certainly feel like that. And for people with a short time frame or less experience in the crypto space as an investor, it might feel like that, especially if they bought Bitcoin when it was $19,500. And now it's down. It went below $7,000. On the other hand, we have to keep in mind that Bitcoin, and I'm just using Bitcoin as an example because other cryptocurrencies tend to follow Bitcoin in most cases. So for those who've been paying attention to Bitcoin since 2009, and for those who've been investing for a while now, Bitcoin has had 11 crashes prior to the current one. This is the 12th one. And when I say crash, I'm talking about 30% or greater drawdown. And it survived all of those. Will it survive this one? Well, just because it survived 11 crashes does not necessarily mean it will survive the 12th one. But when we have this long-term perspective and we've seen the prior crashes and how it made it through those, then we can at least have a little bit of perspective on it. I have a tendency to be bullish on cryptocurrencies in general. I believe that cryptos will receive a boost when a number of things happen. First, when Wall Street starts diverting clients' money into cryptocurrencies, that'll give it a big boost. When central banks start buying cryptocurrencies for their own reserves, as well as when the technology is able to create a way for different blockchains to talk to each other, so to speak. Like when data on the Bitcoin blockchain can talk to data on the Ethereum blockchain and so forth. I believe that the cryptocurrencies will have amazing moments going forward when the technology comes around that is able to interconnect them.
Hey, for sure. For sure. Look, real estate in the history of the country, I think, has had 17 crashes. And understanding that different markets, there's all these sub-markets, but real estate as an asset class, 17 crashes. Last time it looked like it was down and out for good. Here we are, a short decade later, prices are at all-time highs in many markets. So I agree with what you're saying there, but this is a special class of assets. It's a special asset class, I should say. It's purely a creation of technology. It has no inherent value other than its value is purely decided by supply and demand. There's really no regulator in there like with the stock market, commodities. There is, but there isn't. So at any given time, it's strictly a function of supply and demand. But as we know, with other markets, manipulation, it's definitely subject to it. It can definitely be manipulated. And we saw the latest crash in Bitcoin coincided almost perfectly with the disposition by the Mt. Gox trustee. If you're not familiar with Mt. Gox, that was a Bitcoin exchange crapped out, it was 2-3 years ago. And so he dumped $400 million worth of Bitcoin into the market, although he said, I didn't sell it at an exchange, I sold it privately, and he's got another $1 billion left to dump. And correspond that with the advent of futures on Bitcoin. This was an orchestrated takedown. Can't prove it. This is speculative, like so many other things on the internet. But the same time the press turned negative on cryptocurrencies in general and Bitcoin in particular was exactly the same time this guy was dumping $400 million of Bitcoin into the market. Now, $400 million in the stock market isn't even a hiccup, but $400 million into Bitcoin, it shows you how narrow and how shallow these markets really are, David.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from. And we have to realize ultimately the cryptocurrency market is all about big bets and big gains. We're not talking about slow and steady wins the race like we might see with precious metals, for example. You've got to find under the radar cryptocurrencies, like we're going to cover this year in the newsletter. At Portfolio Wealth Global, we're going to the conferences. We meet the projects very much in advance. We're going to cover the newest projects that are right now handling this. We're talking with the developers and so on. So if people want to get all the updates on this, make sure to subscribe to the newsletter. That's absolutely the best way to get the timely information on this. And that's a free newsletter right on the homepage there, portfoliowealthglobal.com. But yeah, I totally see what you're saying. It's not a slow and steady, consistent income type of bet that we can make with Bitcoin or any other cryptocurrency because, yeah, it is subject to the whales, the manipulation. It is subject to security breaches. But then, I mean, is anything 100% safe out there? If anybody believes that the stock market is 100% safe, if anybody believes that the bond market is 100% safe, the quote unquote risk-free bond market, you got to put your money somewhere because the dollar isn't safe anymore. So I believe in Bitcoin as one investment among many that we can make.
I think that's a great point. And when you get to it, when you start looking at it from a technical standpoint, it's a perfect, almost perfect Fibonacci retracement. Bitcoin was definitely a bubble. So speaking of that, what do you think is going to happen with the economy? Are we heading towards inflationary times here? Are we looking at some kind of currency crisis? in the not too distant future?
Yeah. Well, if we're talking about, for example, the dollar, the dollar's had quite a bit of pain. Just go ahead and look at the chart. The dollar against just about any other currency in the world. For example, let's take the trade war that's been in the headlines lately. It almost seems, if you were to read just the headlines, as if this trade war were a new thing between China and the United States. But if we believe that the dollar is going to be the world's reserve currency for too much longer, I think we're just deluding ourselves. Yes, it is the way that people do business, the dollar. But the dollar's hegemony will not last forever. If we just take, for example, the dollar and the petrodollar, China has recently surpassed the United States as the world's largest importer of crude oil. So China already has a strong voice in the global oil markets. Yes, the current global standards are Brent futures, which are traded in London, WTI, West Texas Intermediate, which is traded in New York, and these are traded with mainly the dollar. However, since China recently began launching futures trading to both domestic and international traders for oil futures, and that's yuan-denominated oil futures that began on March 26. This is the latest in a series of steps by China to raise the world's profile of the yuan. And it's an attack on the petrodollar and on the dollar's hegemony in general. So I believe we're going to see this as a trend. I don't know what necessarily is going to replace the dollar someday soon as the world's reserve currency. It might not be the yuan, might be the euro, might be something else. What I do know is that the next phase for the U.S. dollar is going to change the way we invest. And Tom Beck, the founder from Portfolio Wealth Global, will be talking about this and reporting it throughout April and May. So I want people to look out for that.
All right. Sounds good. So with this backdrop that you've drawn, where do you go? Like, if there's one investment that you think is really going to thrive, no matter what happens to the dollar, inflation, de-reserve status of the dollar, where do you go?
That's a great question. Well, right now, Tom Beck from Portfolio Wealth Global, I just mentioned, he's in a bit of a silent period. He and his team are researching for the cheapest gold company on the planet. And I've done my research, and I know which company I'll be backing. I suspect that Tom from Portfolio Wealth Global, who runs the newsletter, will see it just the same way as I see it, that this company was built for greatness, because we talked about it for 3 weeks now, about this company, and we both understand that it will not trade anywhere near its all-time low for much longer. And so the newsletter is going to have a full review of this company. But as you know, gold mining companies are very sophisticated investments. So it's essential that people will understand that gold investments will be powerful tools. And in the years ahead, people should prepare to learn how to trade them correctly. So we put together the most comprehensive manual on gold companies, and that's at portfoliowealthglobal.com/gold playbook. That's portfoliowealthglobal.com/gold playbook. And that's where we'll be mentioning what I'm looking at right now as far as a great company to choose for this inflationary crisis right now, as well as other ways to play gold in this difficult market.
All right. So you got a company in mind here, eh?
Yes. And I definitely would like to see people, check out the research, check out what I'm looking at and what Portfolio Wealth Global is looking at. I think if people avail themselves of this research, I think they'll agree with me.
All right. Well, that's interesting. So speaking of gold, is gold the ultimate hedge against what's going to happen here?
In terms of purchasing power, gold and silver over currencies has absolutely been the best option, no doubt about it. Gold and silver are the ideal as you say, hedge or safe haven asset and the ultimate form of money. Just a little background. I'm sure you know this already. The highest gold price was around 1900 back in 2011. Then we went through a bear market until we started to have some relief around 2016. Currently, we have gold in the 1300s, silver in the 16s, and with the gold-silver ratio in the low 80s. This has only happened 4 times since 1971. Usually at this point, silver actually outperforms gold. It tends to. No guarantees here, of course. But when it hits that extreme level, it might be a good time to ease up on the gold holdings and look more at silver. So it's rebalancing is what we're talking about here. But I love both gold and silver. Don't get me wrong. Now, in terms of seasonality, gold prices tend to rise in the last 3 months of the year, and they tend to peak at the end of December. And so I like to look both at precious metals as well as the miners. That's another way to play it. Miners, yes, miners are a difficult investment class, but we're doing a lot of research. And when we see this trend starting to head higher, we'll definitely pull the trigger on that one. We've done it before. We've gotten 5-baggers before, and we'll definitely do it again. So again, to find different ways to play gold and miners. And what I'm looking at right now, it's again, portfoliowealthglobal.com/gold playbook.
All right. That sounds good. So I mean, it's been going on here for like 6 years, going on the 7th year, the bear market in precious metals. Mm-hmm. What makes you think it's going to turn around?
Yeah, again, it's reversion to the mean, just like with the gold-silver ratio. The gold-silver ratio heading up toward 82, it tends to go back to 50 over time. And so when you had such a massive bear market, it was pretty brutal for investors. But these things have a tendency to ebb and flow. There's an ebb and flow in every market, and whatever gets beat up one day or 1 year or 1 decade, next thing you know, investors love it. And because I believe that there will be something of a massive correction in stocks. I don't think we can have this huge bull market for too much longer. People will be looking for safe havens. I don't believe the dollar will be a safe haven. I don't believe bonds are a safe haven at all. So precious metals will be the place to be. Not in the long term, I believe in the near future.
In the near future. And that's as precise as you probably want to be, because who knows? You're dealing with a lot of things that are beyond anyone's control, even Donald Trump's. But we're obviously hitting a time period of economic instability and uncertainty, right? So anyways, so if you said there's one investment that you highly recommend, if there's one investment that you think everybody should flee as quickly as possible, what would that be?
Well, fleeing as quickly as possible would be, I would say, the dollar, quite a few things. The dollar, just holding cash. Cash is not king anymore. And bonds. If I had to pick one, I'd say the bond market is the most toxic right now. It's the worst time to own bonds. In the environment that we're entering, both bond prices and the yields, the coupon payments they pay will erode through higher inflation rates, normalization of bond yields, treasury yields. The silent killer, inflation, will kill your and my fixed income portfolio, whether you're a retiree, saver, investor, whatever you are. I believe that, and at Portfolio Wealth Global, we believe that inflation is going to reach 4 to 7%. We're talking in the near term, or at least by 2023. Then every year until then, your purchasing power for the dollar is decreased. And if you already own bonds, their value goes down over time when this happens, when rates normalize as they are now, when inflation wreaks its horrendous havoc on the value of the dollar. And as the Fed and central banks worldwide just keep printing money, is there really any doubt that inflation is just going to continue? I don't have any doubt about it. Yes, we had a long bull market for bonds for about 35 years, but these things don't last forever. Just like the stock market doesn't just go up forever. Trees don't grow straight to heaven, as they say. So I believe bonds are in danger of brutal losses. And actually, we have a report about that over at portfoliowealthglobal.com/bonds. That's /bonds. If people want to go ahead and check out that report, download it. Not only does it tell about what's really going on in the bond market, but also alternative investments, ways to yield 8 to 12 potentially 8 to 12%, and in a much safer and more consistent way than the bond market right now.
All right, well, it all sounds pretty fascinating. With every crisis comes opportunity, and it sounds like that's what you are looking at, David. So yes. Just once again, just tell us your website again.
Sure. It's portfoliowealthglobal.com. And I recommend that people check out the newsletter. Also, I did touch upon the stock market. I do believe we may have one more head fake upwards in order to reel in the last of the retail investors, just to, have that final push that we tend to see before a massive correction or crash. And for that, we actually have a report on that as well over at portfoliowealthglobal.com/crash. That's /crash. I want people to really be aware of what might possibly be a top in the stock market and what you can do about it to prepare today. And by the way, if people want to access all of the reports that we have, the widest selection of exclusive reports, people are encouraged to go to portfoliowealthglobal.com/money. That's /money. They can see aggregated all together all of the exclusive reports on Portfolio Wealth Global.
All right. Excellent. Well, David, thanks so much. Hey, if you've got any questions, comments, invite you to join the dialogue, be part of the show. Just send an email to kl@kerrylutz.com or call us on the hotline 914-424-4142, and the Twitter feed's at Kerry Lutz, and the Facebook page, Financial Survival Network. David, thanks so much for coming on, and good luck.
Thank you, sir. I'm a big fan of the Financial Survival Network, and it was an absolute honor to be here. Hope to be invited back again.
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.